when you stop trying to change external things around you and you really lock in on changing yourself, on becoming more self-aware, even giving language to some of the things that I'm describing, the external things tend to shift on their own.
Hello and welcome to Center for Victory's podcast of Your Best Day Yet. At Center for Victory, we're here to help unlock, reinforce, and enrich relationships through personal and professional development. I'm Eric Guy, Chief Victory Officer at the Center for Victory. With us today, all the way from Chicago, the Windy City, right, is Amy Kemp. She's the owner and CEO of Amy Kemp Inc. In her work within this company, Amy helps leaders and business professionals understand how deeply thought habits impact every day of their work and lives. As a certified habit finder coach, Amy has led over 300 female business leaders through a 4-month small group engagement called Encounter that is designed to replace unhealthy thought habits with more healthy ones. This sounds very interesting. I can't wait to unpack this. And welcome, Amy. And I'm going to have you introduce more of yourself as well. So, welcome to the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And before we get kind of started, I know I didn't go through everything. So can you give us a little background? And just for those that are listening and watching, we're going to dive into her book as well. And I think I see it there in the background there. It's
hmm
called I See You, a Guide for Women to Make More, Have More, and Be More Without More Work. Ooh, that sounds good.
I know that's the response I get from most people. Yeah. The work I do now, Eric, is very specific to subconscious habits of thinking. So the stuff that's happening underneath the surface of your brain, largely you're unaware, you're not consciously thinking any of these thoughts, but they are impacting every conversation you have, your ability to see a task through from start to finish, even embracing structures like, a bedtime, let's say, or all of the habits that we set New Year's resolutions around are impacted by these deeper habits of thinking. So these grooves in our brain that really were there and created because at some point they helped us survive.
Hmm.
The problem is when you employ a survival mechanism past the point of needing it, it becomes detrimental and damaging. And so what I'm working on is what are the habits that are now creating resistance that you no longer need to move into a new place. So,
All
yeah.
right. So the question that I have for you then is like, did you just were you just automatically like this? What led you to do that stuff? Because I
Oh
think,
my
I get
goodness.
that question all the time, and I'm sure
Mm,
you do too. That's why you're laughing. It's like,
yeah.
no, it was a journey. What was
Yeah.
your journey, and
Yeah, I'd love to share.
what made you stick on this?
Yeah, it's funny. All of the steps in my professional journey, the thing I loved most about them is like there's a through line. But I started out originally as a high school English teacher. I thought I would teach at the college level, so I was pursuing a master's degree. Long story short, I was in a PhD class and realized that Marxist literary theory probably wasn't going to be my best path forward. I got a little bit like bored with the depth of something so specific and knew I needed more people. And so while I was, after teaching for 5 years, I shifted into sales and really worked in sales for 20, almost 25 years. In the end, I was leading a sales team of about 1,000 people across the United States and really always in, like I said, in every role, my fascination was with the development of people and seeing them move past resistance and sort of step into their own greatness.
Hmm.
This business I totally accidentally started. I did not think I was starting a business. I had so many conversations with women in my life who were only talking to me, but these were accomplished women, maybe people who were sitting at important tables or leading large organizations. And all of them were having a similar experience of isolation, exhaustion, even just a feeling of no one really understands my experience because I'm either leading people at work or I'm leading people at home, and they just were feeling really alone. And I thought, if I could gather these women, something really cool could happen. And so I was speaking at an event in Salt Lake City. I met up with a coach to have dinner who I had worked with, who probably the work I did with him had the biggest impact on my professional development. And it was around these subconscious habits of thinking. But I wasn't pursuing a career in coaching. That wasn't the goal. We were just having dinner, and I
Okay.
told him, I think I need to get these women together. And he said, "Well, we're starting a training to use the habit finder in just it was Thursday. That would have been on Monday they were starting. And I think you should use this tool with these women." And so I thought, okay, I'll just do it, scratch this itch on the side. I went through this very lengthy certification process and then actually started with two groups of women. Um, and the business grew faster than I anticipated. So 9 years later, this is my full-time work now, using this tool in small groups, but then also in one-on-one engagements with people.
Yeah. And I'm curious, what has it done for you personally?
Mm, great question. You know, for me, um, I would say still a daily walk. One of my high risk habits of thinking is a habit that is called fantastical. I have a really active brain that tends to skip ahead past all of the millimeter steps that it actually takes to bring something into reality and go to the outcome very quickly.
Mhm.
I can get lost in the fantasy of it and then become frustrated with the slowness of walking it out and really not enjoy the day-to-day tiny millimeter steps. Like, here's my to-do list for the day, right? It's these tiny things that I'm doing every day and crossing off my list. I can get into this mode where it's just like a just pushing through and striving versus receiving inspired ideas, taking action on them, enjoying the process, and creating something from them. So, again, these habits of thinking and the way I'm creating create totally different outcomes if I'm pushing and forcing versus receiving, allowing, and acting and really enjoying it. It's just a totally different way of working for me.
Yeah. And then to kind of build on this, like what you're doing, I mean, we said
Hmm.
in the introduction, you've worked with over 300 female business leaders to do this 4-month encounter program. What are some of the most common unhealthy thought habits you see in these leaders?
Yeah. Almost all of them have a measurement in the assessment tool. Let me frame this. The assessment tool that I use takes a snapshot of where your subconscious habits of thinking are at risk. So when you take this assessment, it's not like a personality assessment or a strengths. It is
Mhm.
a right now, you are at risk of your brain having a deep groove here and you falling down this pattern of thinking when you're not fully aware and conscious. So it's not an assessment of you, it's an assessment of your thoughts. And those are two very different things. So that's a really important distinction. One of the habits of thinking I see a lot. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs or people who maybe are in sales or work on a commission kind of thing. They are
Mhm.
almost all obsessive thinkers.
Yeah.
They're thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. There's some risks with being an obsessive thinker. One is we tend to get very attached to our ideas. They become very personal. We have thought about them so much that instead of it feeling like this is an idea I have and I'm going to put it out on the table and then like poke holes in it and look at it from all the angles, I'm holding the idea with my arms wrapped tightly around it and like I'm climbing up on the table. And if you criticize it or you say anything or you change it, it feels very personal. to us.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm laughing because your face is so funny right now. What is this resonating?
No, yeah, it's very very much so, not just with the people that I serve, but with myself for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's
Oh, yes. I do this exercise a lot if I'm working with a team where I'll say, I'm gonna put an idea in the middle of the table, but everyone has to like detach from it. Everyone has to look at it objectively. This is not you. This is just your idea or your way that you think it should be done or whatever. And let's talk about it, not you. Because otherwise it just is too personal and it gets real emotional for people. So obsessive thinkers tend to get very attached to their ideas. They also are at high risk of needing to be right. So much so that we'll like plow over people, sometimes inadvertently, but we have such a strong need to be right. And it is legitimately at a cellular level one of the most challenging habits of thinking to bust out of when you're in the
hmm
middle of it. Um, Even around silly things like one of my clients, she really bucked me on this, which I thought was really funny because she needed to be right about the fact that she didn't need to be right. But then later, there was some incident about a Halloween party at her house, and her husband put the salad in the wrong color bowl. And she was like, I just felt it rise up in me like, that's not right. That's the wrong bowl. Silly things. But she said, I really caught myself and thought, okay, does it matter? Is it worth like creating friction with someone I really love who had good intention and is trying to help? And why am I so attached to the color of bowl that the salad is in? I mean, but she had an image she had rehearsed because she thinks and thinks and thinks of what the
Yeah.
table was going to look like.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't right. But you can see, I mean, that's a silly example, but I think as a
No,
business
it's a
owner,
great example because it brings to light how often we sometimes do that
ugh,
in our businesses. I mean, with our kids,
mm,
with our spouses. I mean, it's crazy, right?
I know, I know. Yeah. I mean, the other obsessive thinkers also, it is not negotiable for them to have regular, guilt-free play in their lives.
Mhm.
They have to find things that give their brains a break, or else you will overwork. You'll work too fast for your team. You will plow over people. It's like most of my clients with this habit of thinking probably get 8 hours of work done in 4. So if they work 8, they're getting 16 and they get going so fast that they create too much work for themselves or they get too far ahead of the people around them.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's important that they have guilt-free playtime that's scheduled so they don't overwork, so that the pace is sustainable for the people around them because they go too fast. It's
Yeah.
just too fast.
And then to take it a step farther, when you do the encounter, how does that help with these things? Like if you could even use some of the same examples,
Yeah.
what does that do for people?
Yeah. So I'll give you some from this week because it's fresh. I was just talking to my business manager about this, capturing some of these stories that happen all the time with my clients. One of my clients this week told me that her husband of over 30 years told her he's never felt understood or seen like he has in the last 3 months since she joined my
Mm,
group.
wow.
And a lot of that was um, this need to be right, where he didn't he didn't need her to fix it. He didn't need her to be right about it. He just needed to talk it out and then really probably wasn't even very attached to whatever it was. So sometimes you have outcomes like that. I have another client in that same one of my fall groups also who was getting really wrapped up in how, so in her, I'll describe it more like a franchise. So she has like a corporate office that she's reporting to, but then she's kind of got autonomy in her own branch, we'll say. Um, in any case, she was so wrapped up in what was happening in corporate and it wasn't right and she didn't like the way it was being done and da 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 da. And a lot of our work has just been letting go of that and taking all that wasted energy and really investing it into her team and the place that she has the choice and like the agency over. And they just had their best month in revenue ever.
Mm.
And it wasn't like there was no new business strategy. It wasn't, she's very brilliant. She doesn't need business strategy. It was just that her energy was splintered. She didn't even realize it was happening. And some of it had been like just some past experiences she had had that caused her to become really attached to what was happening there. And so letting it go freed up all this energy to just create in the area where she could control things and then had this really great outcome. Another
Nice.
one just closed the biggest business deal in her 20-year career, which is
Wow.
so cool. And then another one accidentally started a business. Well, not accidentally, but she just opened an LLC. She's actually going to be kind of working as a consultant instead of for another company, doing the same kind of work. But crazy story about how it all unfolded. So things, when you stop trying to change external things around you and you really lock in on changing yourself, on becoming more self-aware, even giving language to some of the things that I'm describing, the external things tend to shift on their own. But we spend all this time focusing our energy outward.
Right.
And it's really the slowest way to create change.
Hmm.
And like, if you can just take some of that and focus it inward, things will change. It's sort of like effortlessly, but not without effort. It's
Right.
not like they're not working, but it doesn't feel hard or
Hmm.
strenuous. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
I did want to talk. I want to make sure we hit on your book a little bit.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so
Hmm.
and again, folks, it's called ICU, a guide for women to make more, have more, and be more without more work. All
Hmm.
right, hasn't been out too long. Almost 2 years now. What inspired you to write the book, and if somebody picked it up, what would be some of the key takeaways that they could look at getting?
Sure. I'll tell you the core message, which is you can't outwork your thought habits. And the reason I know is because if you could, I would have done it, as would most of my clients. I do want to always give the disclaimer that the people I work with and the message of this book is not for the person just starting out. These people are people who have traveled a bit of a journey. They've built a career or they've built a business or they've kind of dug the trenches, so to speak. They've done
Hmm.
that framework of like building something and they've gotten to the point where I don't have any more time or I don't want to work any more hours or I just physically and emotionally cannot work any harder. Like I have reached a max capacity, but I still have a desire for more income, more influence, or more impact. And so what do you do then? And that's the person I wrote the book for, is that you can't outwork your thought habits. That
Hmm.
at that point, it's when the self-awareness and growing internally is what's going to create the change.
Yeah, love it.
Hmm.
Love it. Sounds very, very interesting. Um, so kind of piggybacking on what you just said, in your experience working with these leaders, what's the most surprising or unexpected thought habit you've encountered?
Hmm. Candidly, because I work with probably 95% women, I think most people would be astonished at how many very successful women have been victims of some sort of abuse,
Hmm.
even if it's emotional, um,
Hmm.
financial manipulation, or in a workspace. I'm shocked by it,
Hmm.
the percentage. But if you really think about it, it makes a little bit of sense in that some of the survival mechanisms from that kind of experience work really well in corporate America.
Hmm.
Perfectionism, overworking, hyperfunctioning, like it really does work.
Yeah,
It moves you up the ranks. And
it
so
does.
it's an interesting phenomenon. The problem is you can only get so far, and that very same mechanism becomes the thing that holds you back. And so that's kind of the space that I am honored to hold for these incredible people is this space where that can't be my driver anymore. But I just feel constantly surprised at the frequency, just the pervasiveness of women experiencing even just hostile behavior from like a boss or a whatever. And it's not always from men either. I will be very clear about that.
Hmm.
But just in a situation where they were powerless and couldn't, get out of it. So, yeah.
Uh, it, and how does addressing those things potentially impact the individual and or the teams that they work on?
Mm, deeply damaged self-esteem and self-worth wreaks havoc not only on the leader who's experiencing it, but on every person they're leading. When you have conditions placed on your value, everything becomes a threat and dangerous, so you're constantly living in fight or flight. I would say the greatest gift you can give a team that you're leading is to work on yourself. I It's astonishing to me how much of an impact. I just was talking to someone brand new that I met playing pickleball, and she was talking about how she moved from a department to another department under different leadership from a really exceptional leader to like what she knew was kind of toxic and questionable. Her entire life has changed for the
Mm,
worse.
yeah.
Because it doesn't just affect you when you're at work, like it affects every part of your life. And so, like a healed, whole, healthy leader is a gift to every person they lead because they bring that with them everywhere they go. She was just describing the change in her life from this move. It was astonishing. Do you see that too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's astonishing to me how much of an impact it has.
Yeah. And I don't think we highlight it enough
No.
because
And
it
then
can
why
affect
are
the
people
performance of a lot of
leaving?
people. Yeah.
Leaving in droves from this one department and no one's asking why, or nobody's talking about why. It's really fascinating. And I understand there are bigger, sometimes agendas at play, but it's like the most simple way to keep your best people. And it has nothing to do with compensation. It has nothing to do with a lot of the things that people focus on, but it's really leadership that makes the biggest impact.
Absolutely. Um, in the book subtitle,
Mm.
we say without more work, right? You emphasize without more work. And, that sounds very interesting. But can you share like a practical strategy from the book
Mhm.
that women can use to achieve greater success without adding to their workload?
Yeah. There's a whole chapter in the book about unpaid labor
Okay.
that I talk about a lot,
All right.
because there is an interesting phenomenon, even when I was writing this chapter, where I had many people say, you can interview me, but do not put my name in this book. And the question I ask is, if you're managing a $20 million account for Google, let's just say, why are you embarrassed if people know that you have someone do your laundry? Why would it be problematic for you to pay someone to clean your house? I, I mean, if you flip the script on that, no one would ever question that a man with that role wouldn't be doing his own laundry or would pay someone to clean his house. There
Hmm.
would be no questioning it. It would be celebrated, right? But so many women feel so much shame around not being able to manage all of the unpaid labor and the demands of a leadership role or a high-ranking role or owning a business, right?
Hmm.
There's an unrealistic expectation around unpaid labor, um, and it's mostly held by women. It's not really imposed upon us by anyone else. We're like enforcing it among ourselves.
Yeah.
We're the worst perpetrators of it. So
Yeah.
I never,
Ironically, yeah.
yeah. And or they will say, I just don't know that someone could do it the way I do it, or I don't trust someone into my house, or
Hmm.
I'm not sure they'll do it as well as I do. And so it's just this constant, they're ramming up against, they're running out of energy because
Hmm.
they're just thinking I have to work more, when instead, sometimes what it's going to require is that you let go of some of the unpaid labor you don't enjoy, bring in people to help you. The other piece is I've seen this happen so many times where women are in these kind of mid-range roles in a company. They're doing all the work, but they're not getting called on for a leadership role. They're just like the worker bee below the
Hmm.
surface. A lot of times they're also watching the people in the leadership roles who are working 12 to 14-hour days and saying, I don't want that. I don't want that kind of life. And so the question is, how do I gain more influence in those kinds of spaces with it's clearly not working harder. You're already doing too much. You're
Yeah.
already hyper functioning at in your role. So what does it take to show up with a different kind of energy, not a fake energy and not one that is imitating someone else? You finding your own style of leadership and leading in that way, even if it's different than everyone else at the table and how they lead.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Mhm.
Before our last question that we ask everybody, uh, how can people find you?
Yes. I would invite you to take the Habit Finder first. It's free and it's on my website, which is amykemp.com. So just my name, AMYKEMP.com. That is a really fascinating tool that you can kind of take a look under the hood of your brain and see what's happening there. You'll also find really great resources on my book on the website, additional video content and resources there. But the book is on Audible too. I always love to share that. Of course, you can get the paperback anywhere you
Hmm.
purchase books, but it's in my voice and it's on Audible, and a lot of my readers are actually listeners. So I would invite you to take a listen, especially if you have a commute and you're in the car for a bit.
Good stuff. All right, you ready for the last question?
Yes,
All
yes.
right. Yeah, so since this is your best day yet, we're going to ask you, how would you describe your best day?
Mm, you know, my best day has a mix of things in it. Certainly, the work I do feels inspired and sacred to me. So, a mix of one-on-one and group coaching would be included in that, particularly the days when there are breakthroughs and I can see shifts happening before my eyes. Usually, there's tears involved when that happens. There's some sort of connection made with a client. I love to play. I love pickleball. I love dinner with friends. I love and have made guilt-free play such a critical part of my life. I love theater. I love music. I love all kinds of like those sorts of artsy, creative spaces. So it would include some mix of all those things. Definitely pickleball. I do love pickleball. It is my fun, like um, I describe it when I was young. I rode the bus. I had a friend, Katie, and we couldn't wait to get off the bus to go get on our bikes. And we would ride all over and we would play. That's how I feel about going to play pickleball. Like right now, I can't wait to get off the bus to like go play. So that would
That's
certainly be in
awesome.
there.
Wonderful,
Yes.
wonderful. Well, thanks for being on.
Mm.
This was very eye-opening, and yeah, I'd love to have you back on and chat some more about this. Maybe dive into your book a little bit even more. But this is such a good subject. Thank you for doing what you're doing, and thanks for inspiring our audience. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah. That's all for today, folks. If you want more information, you can see us at centerforvictory.com. And just remember, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, make this your best day yet.